welcome to Think About It. I'm Sylvia Henderson, your host, and I invite you to tune in, take what you see and hear, and, well, think about it. So today, I'm going to talk about, with my guest, Omékongo Dibinga, we're going to be talking about kind of standing up for yourself, standing up for what you believe in, and taking action on what you believe in more than just talking about it. So, and you've been doing that quite a bit lately.
A little bit.
So, thanks. Welcome to
Thank
Think
you.
About It, Omékongo.
Thanks for having me.
And I'll just say, because who knows when people see the show, we'll be talking a little bit about you, and you're running for political office now.
Yes.
However, this might be seen, who knows, a year from now, 2 years from now, and we don't know the results. So
you got to put it out there.
That's right, we'll put it out there.
Councilman. No, just kidding.
So part of what we'll talk about is running for office and why do it, but in relation, and they'll put that in relation to standing up for for what you believe in. So the first thing I always ask my guests, how did you get to where you are now? You speak professionally. You have a message that you share with youth and with adults all around the world. Kind of talk about how you got there.
Well, it goes right to the point that you mentioned with the youth part. And again, thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here today. I got involved in speaking because I wanted to be the voice that I needed to hear when I was a child. Particularly my middle school years were terrible. Growing up in Boston, Massachusetts, growing up at the height of the crack epidemic, crime everywhere, drugs in so many situations, living in the inner city. I also had, my father was very engaged. Both my parents are heavily engaged in fighting for democratic change. In our home, my parents' homeland of the Congo, my father went to Zambia. They tried to assassinate and bash his head in with a crowbar. My entire 7th grade year, he was out of my life. And then I just had to deal with a lot of bullying in school. And luckily, I only had to deal with it in school, because nowadays with our young people, it's 24/7 with social media. So I was fortunate at that level. But so dealing with those issues was very problematic. I speak openly about that time being suicidal, just wanting to check out. And I went to a youth conference, and someone said that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And my family got involved, my sisters, and people just intervened, and just made me see things differently. So as I started to get my confidence back and be more comfortable with things, I started to realize, well, there's other people who are still in the same boat that I am, some younger, some older, and that led me to want to share some words of my own experiences in hopes to motivate them to maybe change their lives or look at their lives in a different way. And that was really the trajectory of my speaking career.
Wow. And as you're talking about bullying, like you said, nowadays 24/7, a lot of what people attribute the school shootings, and that's not just a current thing. My God, it goes back 20 years almost. Do you really think it's because of bullying, or is there something more endemic in what causes youth to do that?
There is definitely some bullying aspects that go into it, but many youth who do end up shooting at schools were not bullied. There were definitely some. We can go back to Columbine, and we know that that exists. But we also have a culture where we don't really value life, and we don't also have a lot of conflict resolution, mediation skills. So many people realize that the best way to act out, they find the easiest way to act out is through violence. Because beyond the school, in addition to the school shootings, we also have people getting beat up physically. I mean, look at people getting beat up and then being posted on YouTube. What does that have to do with bullying? That's people who don't have conflict negotiation, mediation type skills. So we have that issue as well. And it's part of the video game culture. It's part of the fast-paced culture that we live in, this microwave society where if a website doesn't come up in 6 seconds, you go and look for another one. And we just want everything quick. And if we can get those results quickly, we act out irrationally. And so school shootings are part of that, as well as issues relating to bullying. And some people aren't bullying, they're just mad. When somebody turns you down, as we saw in Virginia recently, when or in Texas, I believe, it's sad that we get them confused.
Well, and
right?
they're just kind of a standard, oh yeah, there's another, and we just move on now.
When someone just got turned down for a date and decides to come back and shoot up the school, it's not bullying. That's someone without conflict resolution skills.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem.
And so you spoke to youth for a while. I don't know if you still do a lot of youth speaking.
I still do, yes.
So what does just standing and speaking to somebody do for them? I mean, you know, they're why they do what they do was started from when they were born. And they've got the repeated negative messages constantly as they grew up. So how does, and I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, how does giving a speech going to change a life?
Well, I think most importantly, you got to get up there and not give a speech. You have to talk to them. And now also working with adult audiences and government groups and schools doing professional trainings for educators all across the globe right now. You can't just get up there and talk. You have to relate. I know it's cliche, but they say people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. You have to be relatable. And even though I speak of all ages now, I have that particular passion for youth because that was when I was my most down. And so I know that what I was dealing with, they're dealing with it maybe 10 times because of the multimedia, and you can see things all day. So when I can get up there, and whenever we get invited to speak, people don't care about our degrees. They care about what happened, what did you do when you were down and out, when you felt you were about to give out, because I'm about to give out right now. Or what did you do when people didn't care about you, because I'm about to go home and my mom's going to beat me and my dad's going to say I'm no good. You know, did you have to deal with that? Then they'll start saying, oh, and he got his PhD, and he has several albums. But until they can connect, they're not going to get you. And even as a classroom teacher, I taught kindergarten all the way up to graduate school, and it's the same deal. It's the same deal. That's why I spend so much time in front of young people in particular, because I want them to know that it's going to be okay. They will be fine if they just continue to persevere.
Awesome. So since we're talking about standing up for what you believe in, and a little bit later we'll get to the adult kind of a level of doing that. How does a kid do that? How does a kid do that for another kid?
Yes. Well, one of the things that people have to do when I talk to students, I always say, make sure you're doing more listening and less talking. Sometimes people just need a shoulder to cry on, somebody to just read their text without judgment, wherever they are online, and follow them and support them. Sometimes they just need that. We are so inundated with, you can get access to whatever you want, whenever you want, with the phones and everything. We just need people to sit back and listen. Have students understand that your problem may not be the most important problem at the moment. And who could be, you can literally be sitting in class with somebody now who has been trafficked, or who was a child soldier, or who has dealt with such horrific abuse at home. And if I always let students know that 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in proportion. If you really want people to listen to you, why don't you try listening to them first? Because once they know that you feel them, then they will start to feel you. And at the end of the day, that's all we really want, is to be felt.
Can a young person really, I hear sometimes in the news, if you would just go report, you know that Jill is being bullied, why don't you, Jane, report that to somebody? When the police come into a community and talk to adults and say, tell me about it, they shut up.
I see nothing. I mean, it's Paul, that's between y'all.
So how can we expect somebody young to do that?
You have to create safe, free, anonymous spaces where students can go and know that they can talk to a counselor or another administrator in the school, where what they say is going to be kept in a private situation. Because if they just, because there are some students who are bold enough to come out and say, yeah, I said you have the gun, and so on. And I saw it. There are some, but many, you have to have a system, a feedback box somewhere in the school where you can write a note down. When I heard that, Jim said he's going to attack somebody. So you have to create multiple streams, hotlines, private email, anonymous emails. Those types of things will help students speak up more, because you can't put them on the spot. Because like we said, bullying is 24/7, and you don't want to be vilified for being a snitch or anything like that. So you have to create those types of spaces.
I remember my dad, I grew up in a neighborhood inner city neighborhood, and my dad was one who would pick up trash that somebody dropped, and he kept telling me, we might live in the ghetto, but you don't have to be ghetto or whatever.
That's right. That's right.
And so he would call the police and all that. So as I grew up and started living in the suburbs, when things started to happen in the community, I would call the police, and they'd come walking up to my door to say, "Thank you for calling us." I'm like, "No,
that's not supposed to work. That's hilarious.
No,
oh my
that was
goodness!
supposed to
Talk
be
about a
anonymous.
target. Oh my goodness.
So fortunately, nothing happened with that. But still, I'm thinking, man, you don't want somebody to know.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you know, you have to create anonymous systems. You have to.
So, okay, so we just talked about the person who may be aware of someone being bullied. And, you know, I mean, you can talk about what bullying is too, because there's silent bullying.
That's right.
You know, there's the emotional stuff. People say, oh, I wasn't physically abused. And it's like, there's a whole lot of other kind of abuse,
that's right.
sometimes worse. The person who does feel like they don't have any hope, you know, the one who is bullied, where do they go? What can you do to help them? Because you were fortunate enough to have strong parents.
Yeah, yes, and a strong family network. And one of the things that's really important for schools in particular, we're talking directly schools, community centers and areas like that as well, but you have to be actively engaged in bringing in people that can help students see a better perspective. And it doesn't have to always be in the form of a speaker. It could be in the form of a movie like Rudy, or, you know, different types of things where people don't see other people experience challenges. And so the first thing a student will say is, well, you don't know what I have to deal with. You don't know what I had to do just to get here. But as soon as they can see it in the form of a speaker or a teacher or somebody in their community who's brought in, or a Skype conversation, they have, you know, Les Brown once said that when you hear a negative comment, he talked about the study that said if you hear a negative comment, you have to hear the positive opposite 16 to 17 times before you believe it. So if someone is told they're stupid, 16 to 17 people have to tell them they're smart before they believe it. So what are we doing on a daily basis in this constant negative culture that we live in to give students that daily motivation? Once they start to see it, they'll gravitate towards it. You know, if we both went and spoke to at a school right now, there's going to be one student in the audience who may hear what I've dealt with and say, yes, I see it. They're going to hear what you say and say, yes, I see it. So we'll never know. It's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. You have to keep going until you can get them to. And lastly, you also have to give them opportunities to express themselves. Writing workshops, music classes, dancing. Some of them will express themselves through painting, for example, as opposed to speaking up. That's also important.
True, or music, or I mean, there's so many ways.
Dance, anything.
And before we take a break, because we've got about a minute or so.
Yes.
Shameless promotion, self-promotion. What name a resource you've got that can help people, especially youth right now? We'll come to the...
Well, absolutely. Well, on my website, upstanderinternational.com, upstanderinternational.com, they can see a lot of information there. I have some motivational talks. I have some other information about programs and what people can do in their schools. So there's video, audio, as well as written activities that they can do as well right there.
Awesome, awesome. And so as we move from, you know, from youth to adulthood, one of the ways that it looks like that I believe you can stand up for what you believe in is to put yourself out there. And I know running for office for anything is not for everybody. And I know I know that I am a not frontline influencer. I prefer one-on-one, getting out there, meeting people, and breaking their perspective and their barriers. So when we come back, that you are put yourself out there to stand up for what you believe. So when we come back, we're going to talk about that.
Looking forward to it.
All right. With that, we'll be right back.
If you store your guns properly,
I'll feel safer when I'm playing outside.
Safer when walking home.
And I won't have to tell my kids, this isn't a drill.
Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. Always lock it up.
Hello and welcome back to Think About It. I'm still Sylvia Henderson, your host, and we're still talking with Omékongo Dibinga about standing up for yourself, standing up for what you believe in, and for some, putting yourself out there. So Omékongo, as we continue.
Yes.
So we finished before the break talking about youth mainly, and now we're moving into adulthood. So you have, in addition to speaking professionally, well, everything is speaking professionally.
Right.
I mean,
yes.
So in addition to getting your message, though, out on stage, you are now running for office.
Yes.
Talk about as much as you can. Even though people may be watching this later when everything's over, and people may be watching from all over the country, since we're on the internet too.
Yes, yes.
Just a little bit. What made you get up and run for office?
In every talk that I give and every program that I do, I'm always challenging people to challenge themselves, to not get comfortable. As Brian Tracy said, your comfort zone is your danger zone. And I have to interrogate that with myself on a regular basis. And while I've always been an activist, while I've always been out there fighting for change, whether it's stopping bullying or stopping genocide, I've always been in that field. I've never jumped into political office on this type of level. So I've always been engaged in politics as an influencer. But now, in this climate, and I have to be very honest, the climate that we live in today with so much hate and vitriol, I feel like we have a crisis of leadership nationally, where people aren't really working towards creating real dialogue, really showing that everybody does matter, whether you're whoever's in this country, showing that you have value. I believe that we're creating a resource war, a class war, and a culture war. And I just feel like it was time for me to throw my hat into the ring to really show people how it's done, how we can create inclusive leadership, how we can create something where everybody feels inclusive. And though I live in D.C. in Ward 8, I decided to run for a city council for an at-large seat to represent the entire city, because in my daily life, whether I'm teaching at American, whether I'm teaching fitness classes, or whether I'm at home, or I travel throughout the entire city. Yeah. So I have a first take view at the disparities that exist. I see the beauty and the not so beautiful things, and I just really want to help bring this city together.
And to be running in the nation's capital.
Yes.
I mean, that, even though, well, do you think you can influence what's going on in those white buildings downtown?
I do.
As a city representative? I
do. I believe that every city has to lead by example, and we've seen where there have been cities that have disagreed with some of the policies of the administration, whether it relates to sanctuary cities and the like, and they're saying, you know, we as a city, we're going to do these things because we want to work to stand up for all. And I believe that we can do that. It's already been happening on some levels in D.C. as well, and I want to be part of a movement that's continuing to do that. We have to.
Because I know you speak internationally.
Yes.
When you win.
Yeah. Yes. Say that.
Isn't that going to restrict you?
Well, quite honestly, I am at a point in my life now where DC has just been home, and raising my three
you're
children
a family man now.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of the international work and speaking. I didn't have the children or they weren't growing. Now they're 12 and 9 and 3, and that's part of me. Being engaged in the city politics is being home more and being present more and being more engaged in the city more and showing the city. There's a lot of things I've seen I've been to almost 30 countries, and there's a lot of things that I've seen in other countries that could be applied right here in DC. And sadly, I've been to places like Rwanda and studying, looking at the Genocide Museum there and realizing that we're right now, the conditions in America are right for the genocide to happen, the way it happened in Rwanda. And a lot of people don't want to talk about that. And so, we need bodies at home to really start to get people to see what's going on. And people think that sounds extreme until we start to break it down and I show them how. But I don't see myself doing as much international traveling. I want to be home and really work towards helping a city that's been so good to me. It's provided us with so many opportunities, my wife and I, my children, and I just want to give back.
Yeah, when the company that I worked for moved me to D.C., I was on that 3-year going to move again path. And almost 30 years ago, I said,
wow.
No, I love this area.
Yeah. You just got to plant your feet somewhere.
Yep. So how does one man, and I'll use man figuratively for all the women that are watching,
no doubt.
But how does one person think he or she is going to change the world?
Authenticity. Showing people that you relate to them, that you've had experiences that they can relate to, and that you were able to overcome some of them. positive examples. People need to see how it's done. I was talking to somebody about starting a business in DC, and I was talking about this program and that program that people can help. And the woman instantly said, "Oh, they're never going to help." And I said, I've used it. I know how so when people see it, they can start to identify with it. So, and it's not, and being part of a council, it's not just one person, but it's about being involved in with other people who are also on the council. And of course, we'll butt heads on different issues. But I believe if you can show authenticity, and if you can show that you're really interested in all members of this community progressing, then more people will start to get engaged. That's another thing I hope to inspire with my campaign is more engagement, more youth engagement, more engagement from people who feel like they've been left out for various reasons. We have serious problems in our community with people of different backgrounds and who've left the political system. We want to be able to bring them back in as well. And I believe that I can do that because I've been doing it all my life.
Yeah, I know. As you're saying, people have left. Sometimes I look and I think, man, the good ones are going away because they're tired of the nonsense that goes on now.
And when you're tired, that's when you have to stay engaged, re-engage. So I'm re-engaging.
So how does family feel? How does family feel about and support?
Well, this was my wife's idea. Kendra wanted me to run back in 2016 when there was a Ward 8 seat open. But if the heart's not really in it, the mind was there, but the heart wasn't really in it. And I didn't feel like it would be something that I could fully put in and get speaking all, as we talked about internationally, moving around. But 2018, being settled down more, and again, seeing as what Dr. King talked about, the fierce urgency of now, and it's not like we're dealing with what people dealt with during the civil rights movement on that level, but on some level, some things are starting to come back. I feel like now is the time to really make things happen. So Kendra said, go for it. She absolutely was in favor of it. When my children saw the website, they went get crazy, and they're like, "You can run it for president?" I said, crawl before you walk. City council. So everyone's on board.
The neat thing, though, about that is that now your kids have seen somebody who looks like them as president.
That's right.
I don't care. I'm not getting into politics. But it's just that's something that kids before our kids never saw.
That's right.
So that's not such a crazy ask of you anymore.
And it's just natural for them to just, they've seen that. They've seen that, and it's. Now many people don't think twice about it, and that's the beauty of that.
I remember watching, there was a show, 24, I think, Kiefer Sutherland, way back when he was beating everybody up. I think the first president was the guy who does the, I don't know, some commercials.
The Allstate commercials.
Okay, is that it? And I remember seeing him on the show and seeing him as president, and I thought, oh, that'll never happen.
That's
and how that's changed. So what do you tell somebody who looks like us, yet has to reach out, quote, across the aisle to anybody who's different, whether it's ethnically, religiously, age, whatever? How do you talk about that for a little bit? How do you get out there and deal with other people?
Yes, we have to talk about shared experiences. No matter what the color is, you're living in Washington, D.C., you know what it's like to deal with rising costs. You know what it's like to deal with transportation. If you have a family, you know what it's like to have to deal with school choice and dealing with issues between the school systems. And you know what it's like to have to figure out how to provide for your family. Those types of everyday issues are things that I like to talk about. If you have experiences with health emergencies and having to deal with the healthcare system, that's something that we all have to deal with in some way or another, sooner or later, right? And so, and then furthermore, again, having traveled the world and being such an international city, many people that I'm speaking to, I've been where they're from. And I can especially talk about where they come. And I've also been across this country. So many of the people who have been in D.C. for years from other places, we could talk about what it's like having been in the Northeast or in the South and what challenges are different here. And so I look at the individuals as people who have experiences similar to mine, some more extreme, some less extreme. But where can we find common ground? We need to find common ground in these uncommon times.
How do you inspire somebody to gain the skills that they need in order to get their messages out? I mean, you and I speak, let's face it, you and I speak differently from many people who want to get out there yet don't know how to communicate and aren't accepted in the way they communicate.
Yes. Well, another quotation I'm fond of is, if you want to keep getting what you're getting, keep doing what you're doing. Willie Jolly is the first person I heard ever say that. And we need to, when I speak with people, particularly in D.C., but in other places as well, we need to talk about, one of my economic platforms is getting people to learn the skills to participate in this new economy.
Okay.
It's huge. And people talk about things like universal basic incomes and other government services that can be provided. But I want to talk about what you can do in your life right now to start to change your situation while you're waiting for the government to do whatever you feel it should do. There are so many online, say you want to start a bakery, there's free online business courses. There's local community centers where you can go and get free resources. Most of the things you want to learn how to do today can be free. So we need to show people, and again, since I've done it, I can speak to that. We need to start showing people how they can re-engage in themselves on a daily basis, rather than talking about the fact that you don't have access to high-speed internet, which we want to get in all of our communities. Can we also spend that time at the local library where the internet is there, and we can also be doing other things? So I really want people to push themselves as opposed to waiting to only be pushed by others, because we have so many hardworking people in D.C. One of the challenges that we have is social capital, people knowing where to go, because everything that we need is right there. But if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, I believe that. D.C. or here in the Maryland suburbs, I'm fascinated by how much free there is for on the sense of running a business and the resources. And I think, oh my gosh, people need to know what the resources are. With only a couple minutes left, what's the final message you want to leave with people in terms of standing for what they believe in, and then how do they reach you?
Well, if people want to learn more about the campaign, they can go to www.dibinga4dc, the number 4, dibinga4dc.com, and they can learn more about the platforms we have as it relates to public health, education, and the new economy. And at the end of the day, when you wake up and look in the mirror, you have to ask yourself, am I comfortable with where I am today? Am I comfortable where my city, where my country is today? And if not, do what you can, however small, to start making a change.
And oh my gosh, and you just ended with the words that I was just thinking of. My favorite artist. I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Oh, Omékongo, thank you so much for being my guest today and talking about being the living example of what we've been talking about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. And with that, I'm Sylvia Henderson, your host. You've been watching Think About It. And until next time, I invite you to tune in, take what you see and hear, and, well, think about it.